A Karen burst through the courtroom doors like she owned the place. She pointed straight at Judge Judy, voice shaking with fury. "You are trash! Stop this drama!" she screamed, words slicing through the air like broken glass. The courtroom froze. Even the cameras stopped moving. Judge Judy did not flinch. She just stared, silent and sharp. The kind of silence that always means someone's about to regret what they said. What Judge Judy did next? You'll see it, and you won't believe she kept it legal. The gavel had not struck yet, but the damage was already done. Karen's voice still hung in the air, a sharp, trembling echo that seemed to stain the courtroom walls. Her words, "You are trash! Stop this drama!" replayed in everyone's head like a bad recording nobody wanted to hear twice. The audience sat motionless, eyes darting between her and the bench. Even the cameras hesitated, their red lights blinking as if unsure whether to keep filming. The bailiff, a wall of quiet authority, stood frozen mid-step. Only Judge Judy moved, and slowly, deliberately, resting her pen down beside the open case file. She didn't look angry. That was what scared people most. Her silence wasn't absence, it was power. And Karen, oblivious to it, mistook that silence for weakness. "Do not look at me like that," Karen snapped, adjusting her designer jacket as if it were armor. "You act like this is justice. It's a TV circus. I'm done being your entertainment." The murmur in the crowd rose, a low hum of disbelief. Someone in the back whispered, "She's really doing this." Another voice, quieter, "She's not going to last 2 minutes." Judge Judy leaned back, unblinking. The air seemed to tighten around her, a tension you could almost hear. Finally she spoke. "Miss Carter." Her tone was calm, precise. "Is that your statement or just your outburst?" Karen flinched at the control in Judy's voice. "My statement," she said quickly, but her tone betrayed her, sharp, defensive, desperate to reclaim ground. "Good," Judy replied, "because this courtroom doesn't have time for noise." She gestured toward the clerk. "Proceed with the case." Papers rustled. The sound felt louder than thunder in that still room. Karen rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath that microphones thankfully did not catch. But Judy noticed. She always did. As the clerk began reading the complaint, the camera panned across the room, faces tense, waiting. The plaintiff, Denise, sat quietly on the opposite side. Her fingers gripped a folder in her lap so tightly that the paper inside bent at the edges. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The way she stared at Karen, steady, unblinking, said everything. Karen's laugh broke the silence again, hollow and forced. "Oh, come on," she said. "She's exaggerating. This is ridiculous." Judge Judy's eyes didn't leave her. "Oh, you said that once before, didn't you? When she asked you to pay for the damages?" Karen froze. That one line, calm, surgical, sliced deeper than any insult could. The murmurs stopped. The cameras refocused. Even the bailiff took one step closer instinctively. Judy picked up her pen again. "Let's continue," she said. "I want to see how ridiculous this really is." Karen's smirk faltered. Her confidence wavered. Just a hairline crack, but enough for everyone to see it. The gavel still hadn't struck. But the trial had already begun. Judge Judy looked up once more, voice barely above a whisper. "Miss Carter, are you here to prove your case, or to prove you can shout louder than the truth?" The gavel struck once. Not loud, just enough to remind the room that order still had a pulse. The echo lingered as the clerk began to read the complaint, her voice thin against the tension. "Plaintiff Denise Harper versus defendant Karen Carter," she read. "Claim for property damage and unpaid rent, totaling $5,200. Karen gave a tight laugh, crossing her legs with exaggerated calm. $5,000? For a couch older than my patient's?" The sarcasm bounced off marble walls and died in silence. Judge Judy didn't answer. She simply gestured for Denise to stand. Denise rose slowly, mid-30s, worn jacket, eyes that had forgotten sleep. Her hands trembled around the folder she'd carried like a shield. "Miss Harper," Judy said, tone even, "tell me what happened. Start with the truth, not emotion." Denise nodded. "I rented my basement apartment to her," she began. At first she was polite. Then the complaint started, about the plumbing, the lighting, the noise from upstairs. One day she said she'd handle the repairs herself. Then she stopped paying. Karen cut in instantly. "Because nothing worked." "You left me living in a moldy box." Judy's hand rose halfway, silence. The motion was so small it felt enormous. "Miss Carter, you'll get your turn," Judy said. "Right now you're listening." Karen bit her lip, muttering something that sounded like whatever. Denise continued, voice steadier now. "When she moved out, I found the sink ripped from the wall, holes in the drywall, and," her throat caught, "a note taped to the door that said, 'Enjoy the dump.'" A hush spread through the courtroom. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. Karen smirked. "You can't prove I wrote that." Judy leaned forward, elbows on the bench. The overhead lights caught the silver in her hair. Her eyes were cold precision. "Then I assume you can prove you didn't." Karen's smile flickered. "I don't have to prove anything. This is her fantasy." The judge tapped her pen once, sharp, deliberate. "In this courtroom, reality doesn't depend on who yells loudest. It depends on evidence." She turned to the clerk. "Miss Harper, did you bring documentation?" Denise lifted the folder. "Receipts for the repairs, messages between us, and copies of the rent checks she stopped sending." Karen scoffed. "Photoshopped, obviously." Judy didn't look up. "That's a serious accusation. You'd better be certain." Silence. The camera caught a close-up of Karen's fingers, nails tapping on the desk, rhythm quickening. Beneath the bravado, something nervous flickered. Judy noticed it. She always did. "Miss Carter," she said quietly, "why don't you take a breath before you talk yourself into contempt?" Karen's eyes widened. "Are you threatening me?" "No," Judy replied. "I'm warning you. There's a difference." For a moment, even the lights seemed to hum softer, as if the room itself respected that line. Denise exhaled, shoulders lowering for the first time. She handed the folder to the bailiff, who carried it to the bench like it was evidence from a crime scene. Judy placed a hand on it, but didn't open it yet. She just looked at Karen and said, "Let's see what you're hiding." Karen's lips parted, but no words came out. The rustle of paper filled the silence as the judge opened the folder, and the entire room leaned forward to see what truth looked like on paper. The sound of paper sliding across wood carried louder than any voice. Judge Judy turned one page, then another. Her expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room did. Karen shifted in her seat, legs crossed tight, a smile tugging at her lips that didn't reach her eyes. "I hope you're enjoying your little mystery novel," she said, voice brittle with false charm. "Because all of that means nothing." Judy didn't respond. She was reading. And that was worse than yelling. Karen's smile faltered. She drummed her nails against the desk. "I mean it. I paid what I owed. She's just bitter I moved out." The judge finally looked up. "Miss Carter, do you remember the text message you sent on March 12th? Karen blinked. "What text?" Judy turned the page toward her. "The one that says, 'You'll regret messing with me, sweetheart.' That one." The words echoed through the courtroom. Karen's breath caught. For a split second everyone saw it, the mask slipping. "Oh, that," she said quickly, forcing a laugh. "It was sarcasm. You know how people text these days." Denise spoke softly, but the microphone caught it. "You left it on my door, too." Karen turned toward her, eyes flashing. "Liar!" The bailiff stepped forward, a wall between them. "Back to your table, ma'am." Judge Judy's voice cut through the noise. "Miss Carter." 2 words. That was all it took. Karen froze, caught between fury and fear. Judy gestured to Denise. "You may sit, Miss Harper. You've done enough talking for now." Then to Karen. "You, on the other hand, have done too much." A quiet ripple of laughter from the audience. Judy raised her hand. One look and the laughter died instantly. "Let us review," she continued. "You claim you repaired the property. You claim she exaggerated. Yet you have no receipts, no evidence, and you admit to writing this message. Is that correct?" Karen's throat worked. I didn't say that. You're twisting my words." "I don't need to twist them," Judy replied. "They twist themselves." The courtroom murmured again. Someone whispered, "She's done for." Karen looked around, searching for support, but found only eyes staring back, some pitying, most disbelieving. Her voice rose. "You all just want to see me humiliated. That's what this show is. Humiliation." Judy closed the folder. "No," she said softly. "This show is accountability. The humiliation is optional." That line landed like thunder. The audience fell completely silent. Even the hum of the lights felt like it dimmed out of respect. Denise's fingers relaxed around her lap. For the first time, she looked at Judy, not with fear but gratitude. Karen slumped slightly in her chair. Her shoulders still held pride, but her eyes had started to search for exits. Judy leaned back, calm as ever. "Miss Harper," she said, "you mentioned you had receipts. Would you like to present them?" Denise nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The bailiff took the stack from her and placed it before the bench. The sound of the papers landing was final, like punctuation. Judy glanced at Karen, the faintest trace of a smirk. "Bring them," she said. "Let's see how deep this story really goes." The camera zoomed on the folder sliding across the desk. Karen's reflection trembled in its glossy surface, and when Judy lifted the top page, the whole courtroom seemed to stop breathing. The courtroom lights hummed low, the air thick with curiosity. Judge Judy flipped the folder open, slow and deliberate, the sound of paper turning louder than any gasp. The bailiff stood near Karen's table, arms folded, ready. Everyone could feel something shifting, the invisible weight of truth about to land. Judy studied the receipts one by one. Her expression remained unreadable, but her eyes sharpened like a scalpel under bright light. Karen sat perfectly still, pretending indifference. "You can glare at paper all day," she muttered. "It doesn't mean anything." Judy didn't look up. "You're right," she said softly. "Paper doesn't lie. People do." The audience stirred, the first quiet ripple of tension breaking through. Judy lifted one sheet higher for the cameras to see. "This invoice, repairs dated March 15th, signed by a contractor named Elliot Marks." She turned her gaze toward Karen. "You're familiar with him?" Karen blinked fast. "No, never heard of him." "Interesting," Judy said, "because this signature," she tapped the bottom corner, "matches the one on your rental agreement." Karen frowned. "So what? Maybe he copied mine." Or, Judy said, voice tightening, "maybe you copied his." The words landed like a strike. A collective gasp rolled through the room. Karen straightened. "That's absurd. I didn't forge anything." Judy slid the paper forward. "The notary thinks otherwise. And according to this statement," she lifted a second page, "Mr. Marks has confirmed he never worked for you. In fact, he was out of state that entire week." Karen's face drained of color. "He's lying." "No, Miss Carter," Judy cut in, tone now sharp steel. "It's documented." The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer, hungry for truth. Denise looked down at her lap, exhaling softly. It wasn't triumph, it was relief. Karen's voice cracked, her earlier bravado collapsing under pressure. "You're twisting this to make me look guilty. That's what you do, isn't it? You love breaking people on TV." Judy's expression softened just slightly, not in pity, in recognition. "No, Miss Carter, I don't break people. I let their lies do that." The bailiff took one measured step closer, the soft creak of his shoes echoing across the room. Karen's breathing quickened. Her eyes darted from the judge to the folder, as if hoping the papers would rearrange themselves into innocence. "They're fake," she whispered. "She made them up." Denise finally looked up, voice trembling but firm. "You signed my name, Karen. You even spelled it wrong." The audience gasped again. Judy raised a hand for silence. "Miss Harper, stay seated." Then to Karen, "Do you deny writing this?" Karen's lips parted, but no sound came out. Judy leaned forward, her voice low and calm. "The truth doesn't need a lawyer, Miss Carter. It just needs a moment." For once, Karen had no words. Her reflection in the polished bench showed what her mouth wouldn't admit: fear. Judy closed the folder gently. "The court recognizes this as forged documentation," she said. "We will continue." The gavel struck once, its echo cold and final. Karen's head snapped up as Judy lifted another sheet, this one stamped with a witness signature. "Someone saw you do it," Judy said. The room went silent, the kind of silence that feels like the truth just arrived and locked the doors. The gavel's echo hadn't even faded when Karen shot to her feet. "That's a lie," she shouted, pointing at the folder like it had personally betrayed her. "You can't just make up witnesses." Judge Judy didn't flinch. She sat still, one hand resting on the folder, the other lightly touching her pen. "Sit down, Miss Carter," she said. "You're not helping yourself." Karen ignored her. "This is a setup. You all love making villains out of people like me. You edit, you twist, you forged," Judy interrupted softly. The courtroom gasped. Karen froze mid-rant, mouth open, chest heaving. You can't prove that. I don't have to, Judy replied. The notary already did. She slid the witness statement forward. The bailiff placed it in front of Karen. Her eyes darted across the page, searching for a mistake, a loophole, a lifeline. Her hands shook. This isn't fair, she whispered. He said he'd help me. He said, Judy's gaze sharpened. Who said? Karen realized too late what she'd revealed. Nobody, she muttered. Denise looked at her, not angry, just tired. You blamed me for months, she said quietly. And now you blame ghosts. Karen's jaw clenched. Oh, shut up. You act like you're innocent. Judy's pen hit the desk, a tiny, deliberate sound that made everyone jump. Enough, she said. The air turned heavy again, thicker than before. You want fairness, Miss Carter? Judy's tone was steady, surgical. Fairness means accountability. That's what this room is for, not performance. Karen folded her arms. Performance? You're literally on television. Correct, Judy said. But only one of us is pretending. A ripple of laughter, sharp and brief, rolled through the audience. The bailiff shot them a glance, and the laughter died instantly. Judy leaned forward, eyes locked on Karen. You are here because you chose deception over decency, because you thought noise could drown out evidence. Tell me, how's that working out so far? Karen's lip trembled. You're twisting everything I say. No, Judy said. You're twisting yourself. Denise covered her mouth, trying not to react. The camera zoomed closer on Karen's face, sweat glinting under the lights, mascara trembling near the corners of her eyes. For the first time, her voice faltered. I wanted to prove I wasn't wrong. Judy tilted her head. Even if it meant being dishonest? Karen's silence was louder than an answer. Bailiff, Judy said quietly, please remind the defendant to remain seated. The bailiff moved closer, not aggressive, just firm. His presence alone restored gravity. Karen sank back into her chair, her arrogance deflating in visible stages. Denise exhaled, clutching her hands together beneath the desk. She wasn't smiling. Justice didn't look like triumph. It looked like exhaustion. Judy looked over her glasses at Karen, her tone calm but cutting. I'm going to give you 1 minute of silence, she said. Use it wisely. Think about the next words that come out of your mouth, because they might decide how the rest of this hearing goes. Karen stared back, chest rising and falling, her own reflection trembling in the bench's glossy surface. A single tear slid down her cheek before she wiped it away with anger. I'm not the bad guy here, she whispered. Judy didn't answer. She just nodded to the bailiff. We'll take a brief recess. But as Karen stood to protest, the bailiff stepped forward, hand resting on her shoulder, firm as a verdict. The gavel's echo still clung to the walls as the courtroom emptied for recess. Even silence had a pulse. Karen stood by her table, pacing like a caged storm, muttering under her breath about fake evidence and ratings. The bailiff lingered near the door, one eye on her, one on Judge Judy, waiting for a signal that never came. When they returned minutes later, the tension came back with them, thicker than before. The air felt charged, like lightning was somewhere close but unseen. Judge Judy re-entered without a word. She sat, adjusted her glasses, and glanced down at her notes. No speech, no announcement. Just stillness. That was her warning shot. Karen tried to smirk, but her voice betrayed her nerves. So, she said, ready to finish embarrassing me? Judy didn't look up. That depends, she said evenly. Are you finished embarrassing yourself? The courtroom rippled with quiet awe. Karen blinked fast, her mouth opening and closing before sound finally escaped. You don't scare me, you know that? Good, Judy replied, looking up now. Fear clouds judgment. You'll need all the clarity you can get. Karen leaned back, folding her arms like armor. This whole thing's ridiculous. You act like I'm some criminal. I'm the victim here. Then act like one, Judy said, her voice calm but colder now. Because right now you're behaving like the cause, not the consequence. Denise sat quietly, watching, her hands clasped tight in her lap. She looked like someone witnessing a thunderstorm, awed, terrified, and unable to look away. Karen rolled her eyes and laughed, too loud for the space. You love this, don't you? The drama, the cameras. Judy's pen clicked once. Miss Carter, if you say one more word out of turn, you will leave this courtroom faster than you entered it. Do you understand? The laughter died instantly. Karen's smirk twitched but held. "What are you going to do?" she taunted. "Throw me out?" The bailiff's head turned sharply toward Judy. Their eyes met for half a second, enough. The crowd sensed it. The air shifted again, a storm cloud about to break. Judy's tone dropped an octave lower, quiet enough that everyone leaned forward to hear. "I'm giving you one last warning, Miss Carter. Respect this court or you will be escorted out of it. You have 5 seconds to decide which version of yourself we're keeping in this room." Karen's voice cracked. "Barely. You think you're better than everyone, don't you?" "No," Judy said, her eyes steady. "Just better at listening." The audience erupted in murmurs. The bailiff's voice rose, "Order in the court!" And the echoes folded into silence once again. Karen slumped back in her seat, eyes wet but defiant. "Fine," she whispered. "Let's finish your little show." Judy looked down at her notes, not a flicker of reaction crossing her face. But the bailiff didn't step back this time. He stayed close, just in case the storm decided to finish breaking. Judy lifted her eyes one final time. "Proceed with the evidence review." Karen muttered, "Go ahead." And as the clerk approached with the files, the bailiff's fingers brushed the side of his belt. Ready. The next moment would decide whether this stayed a hearing or became history. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent and watch her self-destruct? Or would you have stepped in before the storm broke? The air had weight now, heavy, metallic, almost humming with restraint. The clerk placed the files on the bench and stepped back. The papers looked harmless, but everyone in the room knew better. Evidence could slice sharper than any weapon. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses and glanced up. "Miss Carter," she said evenly, "you'll stay silent unless spoken to." Karen scoffed, arms crossed. "Right, because that's worked so well for me so far." The bailiff shifted his stance. The audience collectively held its breath. Judy's tone remained calm. "You're about 1 sentence away from leaving this courtroom, Miss Carter. And it won't be voluntary." Karen laughed, a jagged, humorless sound. "What are you going to do?" "Have your guard dog drag me out." That broke the room. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The bailiff's jaw flexed, but he didn't move. "Not yet." Judy's eyes didn't blink. "That man has a name," she said softly. "And you just crossed a line you can't uncross." Karen rolled her eyes. "Please, you love this. You live for people like me. Gives you something to feel superior about." Judy leaned forward. Her voice was so calm it was almost tender. "No, Miss Carter. I live for truth. People like you just make it easier to find." The words hit harder than any shout. Even Karen seemed stunned by the precision of it. Judy turned to the bailiff. "Step closer." The man obeyed, taking a slow, deliberate step toward Karen's table. A single bead of sweat rolled down her neck. She tried to hide it behind another smirk, but the cracks showed. "Let's review the term contempt," Judy said, her tone turning instructional. "It means open disrespect toward the authority of this court. It also means—" She paused, eyes narrowing. "You forgot where you are," Karen scoffed again. "This isn't a real court. This is a TV show." The audience gasped. Even Denise looked up sharply, as if the words had been too reckless to exist out loud. Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Then consider this your real moment, Miss Carter. Because the embarrassment you're writing for yourself will last a lot longer than the broadcast." Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound. For the first time, she seemed unsure whether to fight or fold. The judge turned to Denise. "Miss Harper, please remain seated. I don't want this circus touching you." Denise nodded, eyes downcast. Judy looked back at Karen. "I'm done entertaining arrogance. The gavel came down once. Clean. Final." "Miss Carter, you are in contempt." The words froze Karen mid-breath. "You can't do that." She barked, standing again. "You think you can humiliate me on television?" The bailiff stepped forward now, closer than before. His voice was low but solid. "Ma'am, sit down." Karen didn't. Her voice cracked. "I'm not some criminal." Judy leaned back, utterly composed. "Then start acting like a citizen." A long pause. The courtroom's energy balanced on a knife edge. Then Judy spoke again, quieter but unmistakable. "Bailiff, remind her where she is." The camera caught Karen's frozen face as the bailiff moved. Her defiance flickered between rage and fear. No one made a sound, not even the judge. And just before the scene cut to black, The faint sound of the bailiff's shoes echoed. 1, 2, the sound of authority approaching. The bailiff's steps echoed like slow thunder across the floor, 2 measured beats that sounded like judgment drawing near. Karen froze in place, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. The glare she'd worn since she entered was gone. What replaced it was something quieter, something close to fear. Judge Judy didn't say a word at first. She just waited, her silence swallowing the room. Then, softly, "Miss Carter, sit down." Karen hesitated. For a moment, defiance flared again, that last ember of pride refusing to die. "So you can't scare me," she muttered, her voice trembling in betrayal of her words. Judy replied without even looking up. "I don't have to scare you." The truth already did that. The audience exhaled as if they'd been holding their breath for minutes. The bailiff stepped back half a pace, but his eyes stayed locked on Karen. Finally, Karen sat hard. Her chair scraped against the floor, the sound screeching like her pride. "Now that we remember where we are," Judy began, "let's finish this case." She picked up another folder, smaller than the first, edges crisp and recent. "Before recess, I asked my clerk to make a call. You'll want to pay attention." Karen frowned, her voice low and defensive. "What kind of call?" "To the property owner," Judy said, flipping open the file. "Your landlord." A tremor of panic flashed across Karen's eyes. "You had no right." Judy's gaze snapped up, cutting her mid-sentence. "When evidence is disputed, I have every right to verify it. And as it turns out," Judy read from the file, voice steady and surgical. "Statement from the property owner. Karen Carter is responsible for multiple damages left unrepaired. Total cost of repair, $5,000 plus late fees. Security deposit withheld as per lease agreement." Karen blinked, her lips parting. That's not true." Judy didn't let her finish. "He also confirmed," she continued, "that you sent him several texts after moving out, threatening to ruin his reputation if he reported you." The courtroom went silent. Even the cameras didn't move. Karen's voice came out in a whisper. "He can't say that." "He promised he wouldn't." Judy raised an eyebrow. "You admit sending them, then?" Karen's silence was answer enough. Judy nodded slightly, victory without gloating. "The record will show that the plaintiff's claims are substantiated. Damages are verified. The defendant's documentation is fraudulent." The audience stirred, a low murmur of disbelief and grim satisfaction. Karen's voice suddenly rose again, desperate, brittle. "This isn't real. You people don't get it. You're just following a script." Judy's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "If this were scripted," she said quietly, "you'd have written yourself a better ending." A ripple of gasps rolled through the room. The bailiff stepped closer again, but this time it wasn't threat. It was protection. For everyone's dignity. Karen slumped in her chair, her fight leaking out like air from a punctured tire. Judy closed the folder. "Case facts are settled. Judgment will follow shortly." She paused, just long enough for the weight of the moment to land, and then delivered the line that felt like a verdict to the soul. "You wanted drama, Miss Carter? Welcome to reality." The bailiff reached for the folder to remove it, but Judy stopped him with a subtle gesture. "There's one more piece of evidence," she said. "And it doesn't come from the landlord." Karen's head snapped up, confusion giving way to dread. Someone else had spoken. Someone who'd seen everything. The moment Judge Judy said, "There's one more piece of evidence," the courtroom changed temperature. The air itself seemed to draw tighter, like the walls were leaning in to listen. Karen's bravado drained from her face. Even her breathing sounded louder than usual. The bailiff stepped aside as Judy lifted a slim envelope from the folder, the seal already broken. "This," she said, "was submitted anonymously this morning before the hearing. My team verified its source during recess." Karen swallowed. "Anonymous? Oh, come on, that's not even legal." "It's legal when authenticated," Judy interrupted. "And this one was." She unfolded the contents, a single printed photograph and a time-stamped screenshot. The courtroom leaned forward as the monitors lit up, displaying the image. It was Karen, standing beside the very repairman she claimed didn't exist, her hand raised mid-argument, the same outfit she'd worn the day she denied everything. A hush fell so thick you could hear paper settling on desks. Karen's face went pale. That's not me," she stammered. Judy's tone was razor-flat. The photo metadata confirms otherwise, and the screenshot that came with it. She held up the second page. It's a message from your email address to a contractor you tried to impersonate. The words are simple enough. Make sure the invoice looks real this time. Karen's lips trembled. No. That's fake. You can fake that, Denise whispered almost to herself. But truth doesn't need to, the audience murmured. Quiet disbelief mixed with a kind of moral outrage. Everyone had seen Arrogance before, but this was its breaking point. Karen's voice grew sharp, desperate. You can't prove that's me. Judy's eyes locked on hers, calm and unwavering. Miss Carter, you're sitting here in the same necklace, the same jacket, the same hairstyle, and you're still asking me to doubt what my eyes can see. The bailiff took a half step closer, just enough to remind her where she stood. Karen's composure started to unravel completely. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. He told me it wouldn't come out, she muttered. He told me no one would find out. Who told you? Judy asked instantly. Karen blinked. The question hit like a cold slap. No one, she said too quickly. Judy sat back. You see, that's the problem with lies. They multiply faster than you can count them. Denise looked down again, the kind of sadness that doesn't need words spreading across her face. Judy continued, voice soft but cutting. Miss Carter, everything you've done here, every denial, every accusation, has only proven the plaintiff's case for her. You didn't just damage a property. You damaged credibility. And that, she said, tapping her pen against the bench, is much harder to repair. Karen opened her mouth but found no words. Her reflection in the judge's desk stared back, smudged makeup, trembling lips, pride flickering out like a dying light bulb. Judy closed the folder. We're not done yet, she said quietly. There's one person left to hear from. Karen's head snapped up. Who? Judy gestured toward the side door, where the bailiff stood waiting. The man who took that photograph. A single door creaked open and a shadow filled the frame. Karen's breath hitched. Her body went rigid. Impossible, she whispered. He wasn't supposed to be here. Judge Judy didn't look away. He's here now. And he's under oath. Do you think remorse can undo deception, or does justice demand consequence no matter how late the apology comes? The side door creaked open, its hinges groaning like they were reluctant to reveal what waited behind them. A man in work boots and a faded denim jacket stepped through. Tall, composed, with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. The bailiff guided him to the witness stand. Karen froze. Her lips parted but no words came. Recognition rippled across her face like a shadow passing through sunlight. Judge Judy leaned forward. State your name for the record. Elliot Marks, the man said calmly, the same name from the forged invoice. The audience gasped. Even the cameras tilted slightly, zooming in like they understood the weight of the moment. Karen's voice broke through, thin and frantic. He's lying. He's not supposed to be here. Judy's tone didn't waver. Mr. Marks, are you the contractor listed in the invoice submitted by Miss Carter? Yes, ma'am, he said. Except that's not my signature. He turned toward Karen, not angry, just disappointed. You called me once, remember? Asked if I could fix a sink. I told you I was booked. 2 days later, I got an email with my name on paperwork I never touched. Karen's breathing quickened. You don't have proof of that! Elliot reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small creased paper. Actually, I do. Here's the original message chain. My name, my date stamp, her request. I kept it after the landlord called me, asking why I charged him for work I never did. The bailiff collected the note and handed it to Judy. She glanced over it briefly, then looked up. Everything matches, she said. Every timestamp, every word. Karen stood abruptly, voice rising. He's making this up. They're all in on it. Judy's gavel came down once. The sound cut like a crack of lightning. Miss Carter, she said evenly. One more interruption and you'll finish this conversation from outside that door. Karen's chest heaved. You can't do this to me. Judy didn't respond. Instead, she nodded toward the bailiff. Let him continue. Elliot turned slightly toward the bench, his voice steady. I didn't come here to ruin her. I came because lying about me cost my company 3 clients. I almost lost my license. Denise lowered her head, tears glinting in her lashes. The whole room seemed to exhale at once, quiet sympathy mixed with anger. Karen whispered, "You're all exaggerating." But her words had lost their weight. Judy folded her hands. "Miss Carter, you claimed you never met this man. Yet here he is, testifying to an email you wrote, a name you forged, and a lie you built around his reputation. Do you have any explanation at all?" Karen shook her head slowly. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she said, voice breaking. "I just wanted her to stop making me look bad." Judy's tone softened, not Judy lifted another folder, thinner than the rest, its corners worn from use. "This," she said, "is the final file, and it doesn't come from any witness." Karen's eyes lifted slowly, hollow and frightened. "It comes," Judy continued, "from you." The room went dead still. Even the faint hum of the light seemed to fade when Judge Judy said, "It comes from you." Karen's face stiffened. She didn't even blink. The bailiff's shadow loomed in quiet readiness. Judge Judy placed the final folder on the bench, thinner than the others, but heavier in presence. She opened it slowly, her movements deliberate, surgical. "Miss Carter," she began, voice calm but edged with something colder, "when someone participates in this courtroom, they agree to release certain communications for verification, especially those tied to the dispute." Karen's brow furrowed. "What communications?" "Your emails," Judy replied. "The ones you sent to the network." Karen's confusion flickered, then hardened. "My emails to you?" "No," Judy said. "To our producers. 2 weeks before this hearing." The crowd shifted. A wave of anticipation rippled through the audience. Even Denise looked up. Sensing that something big was about to break, Judy continued, "You claimed, and I quote, that you wanted to make good television. You said you'd turn this show upside down, and you promised to make the judge lose her cool." Karen's mouth fell open. "That was a joke. I didn't mean—" Judy didn't raise her voice. "You also wrote, 'She thinks she's the queen of TV. I'll remind her she's just another old woman with a script.'" The audience gasped audibly. The sound rippled through the room like thunder rolling across the walls. Karen's face went sheet white. "I didn't. Someone hacked." Judy's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet those messages were sent from your verified account, the same one you used to submit your appearance form. No hack, no doubt." Denise looked stunned, hand covering her mouth. The cameras zoomed in, the kind of close-up that ends reputations. Karen's voice cracked. "I was angry. I thought this was just a show. I didn't think anyone would take it seriously." Judy closed the folder gently, her tone softening, but that softness hurt more than any shout. "That's exactly your problem, Miss Carter. You think everything's a show? But for the people you hurt, this is real life, real damage, real consequence." Karen's shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked small. I just didn't want to feel invisible," she whispered. "Everyone acts like I'm the problem, but I was just trying to be heard." Judy's expression shifted, not pity but understanding. "You don't earn visibility through chaos. You earn it through honesty." Tears welled in Karen's eyes. "I didn't mean to ruin anyone's life." "You didn't ruin theirs," Judy said. "You ruined your own." The camera caught Karen's trembling hands, clasped tight as if she could still hold on to control. But the act was over. All that remained was the echo of her choices. Judge Judy's voice softened again, barely above a whisper. "Tell me the truth, Miss Carter. Why did you forge that signature?" Karen exhaled shakily, her voice breaking open like glass. Because I was going to be evicted. I was scared. I thought if I looked capable, no one would see how desperate I was." The courtroom went silent. The audience's expressions softened. Even Denise's tears changed, not victory but sympathy. Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone no longer cold but human. "So you broke the law," she said, "to feel seen." Karen nodded through her tears. "Then let's make sure you're seen," Judy whispered. "For who you really are." The words hung in the air, and to feel seen. They echoed in every corner of the courtroom, quieter than guilt, but louder than pity. The audience didn't move. Even the bailiff, usually stoic, looked momentarily human, his posture loosening just enough to betray empathy. Judge Judy sat perfectly still. The gavel rested near her hand, but she didn't reach for it. She just watched Karen, really watched her. For the first time, Karen wasn't performing. Her shoulders slumped, her voice barely more than breath. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I just wanted a chance to explain myself, but nobody listens to me unless I yell." Judy's tone was quiet, deliberate. "And when you yell, Miss Carter, what happens?" Karen's lips trembled. "People look at me." "They look," Judy said, "but they don't listen, do they?" Karen shook her head slowly. "No." The courtroom remained utterly still. Denise stared at her folded hands, eyes shimmering. The anger that had once burned in her gaze was gone, replaced by something more complicated. Judy leaned forward, resting her elbows on the bench. "Miss Harper," she said gently, "you've been patient through a great deal of disrespect. I imagine this wasn't easy to sit through." Denise nodded softly. "It wasn't, but I think I understand her now." Karen turned toward her, startled, raw. "You do?" Denise's voice cracked slightly, but she held her composure. "You lied, Karen. You hurt me. You made me look crazy, but I know what it's like to feel invisible. It doesn't excuse what you did, but I get it." Karen's eyes filled again, and for the first time since the hearing began, she didn't try to fight the emotion. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." The apology fell heavy and honest. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't loud. It just was. Judge Judy sat back, her eyes softening but never losing their clarity. "Apologies don't erase what's done," she said, "but they can stop it from repeating. That's what separates remorse from regret." Karen nodded, silent tears streaking her mascara. Judy continued, tone calm but firm. "You've been angry at the world because you felt small. But the truth is, you made yourself smaller every time you lied. You built walls with your pride and then blamed others when no one could reach you." Karen wiped her face. "I don't know how to fix that." "You start," Judy said, "by facing the consequence without fighting it." The audience shifted, a soft murmur of agreement passing through. For the first time, there wasn't a single trace of mockery, just the quiet recognition of a person breaking and beginning again. Judy took a breath, her voice steady once more. "This court will issue judgment next, but before that there's something I want you to think about, Miss Carter. Justice isn't revenge, it's recognition. Gert sees what's broken and names it." Karen looked up, her voice small. "What's mine called?" Judy's gaze held hers for a long silent beat. "Loneliness." The word landed like truth disguised as mercy. The gavel still didn't fall. Judy glanced toward the clerk. "Prepare the summary," she said softly. "Justice still has to speak." Karen closed her eyes, whispering to herself a prayer, or maybe just a plea, as the papers began to shuffle again. The courtroom felt heavier now, as if everyone could sense the weight of what was about to come. Judge Judy sat upright, composed but thoughtful. The gavel still rested untouched beside her hand, a symbol, waiting for purpose. "Miss Harper," she began softly, "you've brought a legitimate claim. The evidence supports your losses, the witness confirmed your story, and the defendant has admitted wrongdoing. This court doesn't deal in vengeance and only consequence." Denise nodded faintly, eyes red but steady. Then Judy turned to Karen. "Miss Carter," she said, "you've spent this entire hearing blaming others for the mess you created. But today, for once, you told the truth. That counts for something. Not enough to erase what's owed, but enough to remind you that honesty is still cheaper than deceit." Karen wiped her face, her voice quiet. "I understand." "Good," Judy said, "because I'm about to remind you how expensive lies can be." She opened the case summary in front of her, reading each line slowly, her voice resonating with a calm authority that filled the room. "Property damage, $5,000. Late fees, $300. Court costs, $200. Total restitution due to the plaintiff, $5,500. Karen flinched as if each word hit her skin. Her voice broke. I don't have that kind of money." "Then you'll find it," Judy replied. "You built a life out of pretending to have more than you did. Consider this your first honest debt." The crowd murmured quietly, the sound respectful but heavy. Karen looked toward Denise, her voice trembling. "Will you—" Denise hesitated, emotion crossing her face in waves, pain, compassion, exhaustion. "If she means it," she said finally, "I'll accept installments." Judy nodded. "That's fair. Justice doesn't always need punishment. Sometimes it just needs responsibility." For a moment the silence felt almost peaceful. But it wasn't over yet. Judy leaned back slightly, folding her hands. Miss Carter, there's one more thing you owe. Something you can't pay with money. Karen looked up, blinking. What's that? Accountability, Judy said. Not the kind you perform. The kind you face. The line carried more weight than any gavel strike. Even the bailiff, hardened by years of repetition, shifted his stance subtly. Respectful, almost reverent. Judy continued, her tone still calm but now filled with quiet conviction. You're going to leave this room today owing $5,500. But the bigger debt isn't to Miss Harper. It's to yourself. Because until you stop measuring your worth in noise, you'll keep creating chaos to be seen. Karen lowered her head. Her hands trembled slightly against the desk. I never wanted to be like this, she whispered. No one does, Judy replied. But we all have a moment when truth stops asking politely. This is yours. The room stayed silent. Denise glanced at Karen, then at the judge, and for the first time since the case began, she spoke not as a victim, but as a person offering grace. I don't hate her, Your Honor. I just wanted her to stop hurting people. Judy's eyes softened. That's what justice sounds like, she said quietly. Judy lifted her gavel but didn't strike it. There's one last matter, she said, her voice taking on a different tone, not judicial but human. The law can collect a debt, she continued. But forgiveness, that's earned another way. The courtroom no longer felt like a battlefield. The hostility had burned itself out, leaving behind something quieter, the stillness that follows when truth finally stops running. Judge Judy's hand hovered over the gavel, but she didn't bring it down. Instead, she exhaled slowly, her tone softening in a way that made everyone listen closer. Miss Carter, she said, money will repair the damage to Miss Harper's property, but there's another kind of damage here that money can't fix. Karen looked up, her eyes rimmed red, voice trembling. What kind? The kind, Judy said, that's paid with humility. Karen swallowed hard. I've already said I'm sorry. No, Judy said firmly, you've spoken the word and you haven't meant it. An apology isn't a sentence, it's a surrender. And until it comes from somewhere real, it's just another lie dressed as remorse. The audience stayed silent. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. Denise looked down at her lap, then up again, eyes soft but uncertain. Judy gestured toward her. You're going to look at Miss Harper and give her a real apology, not because the cameras are here, not because I told you to, but because she deserves one. Karen hesitated. Every instinct told her to resist, to protect what little pride she had left. But something in Judy's eyes made defiance feel childish. Slowly she turned to face Denise. Her voice shook as she began. Denise, I don't even know where to start, I lied. I tried to make you look like a fool when you were just trying to get what you were owed. I told myself it didn't matter, because nobody cared about me anyway. But you didn't deserve that. Tears rolled freely now, her voice breaking. You were kind to me when I moved in. You helped me with groceries. And I turned that kindness into ammunition. I'm so sorry. Denise blinked fast, her chin trembling. I know, she whispered. And I forgive you. The entire courtroom went still, that fragile kind of silence that feels sacred. Even Judge Judy's eyes softened. That, she said quietly, is what accountability sounds like. Karen nodded through her tears. I'll pay what I owe. Every cent you will, Judy said. And when you do, you'll have earned more than just financial closure. You'll have earned your dignity back. Karen wiped her face. Do you think I can? Judy looked at her for a long moment. Redemption doesn't happen all at once. It's not a headline. It's a habit. You prove it by living differently. The cameras captured the moment, not as spectacle but as truth. Two women sitting in the same space, no longer enemies, just human beings facing the cost of pride and the price of forgiveness. Judy leaned back, resting her hand lightly on the gavel. This case was never about rent or repairs, she said. For it was about respect, the kind that's easy to demand but hard to deserve. Karen nodded, barely whispering. Thank you. Judy offered the smallest nod in return. Don't thank me yet. Thank yourself when you live better than this moment. The gavel lifted halfway. Not yet final, not yet absolution. Karen looked at Denise and whispered, Am I forgiven? Judy didn't answer. She just looked ahead, eyes steady, calm, infinite. The gavel paused in the air like time itself was waiting for her next word. Before you hear Judy's final answer, Tell me, do you believe people truly change, or do they just learn to hide their worst parts better? The room was breathless. Every camera light, every pair of eyes, every heartbeat in the room seemed to hang on that suspended gavel, hovering halfway between punishment and peace. Judge Judy didn't move at first. She watched Karen's face, not as a defendant, but as a person. A woman who had walked into this courtroom swinging arrogance like a sword and now sat quietly, disarmed by truth. Am I forgiven? Karen's voice barely carried, fragile as paper. Judy didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted over the room, the silent audience, the bailiff's steady stance, Denise's tearful calm. She was measuring the weight of what had just happened, not just the legal wrongs, but the emotional wreckage that pride had left behind. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, even, but it carried through the air like a closing hymn. Forgiveness, she said, isn't something you earn in this room. It's something you build outside of it. You don't get to walk away forgiven. You walk away responsible. Karen's chin trembled, but she nodded. I understand. Judy placed the gavel gently on the bench. She didn't strike it yet. She simply rested her fingers against the wood, tracing its edge. I've seen a lot of arrogance in this courtroom, she continued. But yours was different. It wasn't cruelty. It was fear wearing makeup. The words landed heavy, but they weren't cruel. They were honest. Judy turned to Denise. Miss Harper, you've shown patience most people don't have. Today, justice isn't just yours. It's a lesson for everyone watching. Denise nodded, eyes glassy. Thank you, Your Honor. Then Judy looked back at Karen. You came in here wanting attention. You're leaving with something far more valuable, perspective. You don't need an audience to prove you matter. You need integrity. Karen's lips quivered. I'll try, she whispered. No, Judy said softly. You'll do. The quiet after that word was absolute. Even the bailiff's expression softened, the corners of his mouth twitching towards something like relief. Judge Judy finally lifted the gavel higher. The light caught its polished surface, glinting like a final warning and a benediction all at once. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, in full restitution of $5,500, she declared. Case closed. The gavel fell once. A sound so clean, so final, it felt like the courtroom exhaled with it. Karen didn't move right away. She sat staring at the floor, her reflection rippling across the glossy desk. Mascara streaked, hair disheveled, pride shattered. But beneath it something fragile flickered. Recognition. The bailiff approached. Ma'am, he said gently, this way, please. Karen stood slowly. She didn't fight. She didn't argue. She just looked once more at Denise, who gave a small, tired smile. Not victory, but release. As the bailiff guided her toward the door, the echo of their footsteps filled the chamber, the sound of arrogance leaving the room. Judge Judy remained seated, her face unreadable. But when the door closed, her expression softened. She spoke to no one in particular. Her words meant for anyone who'd ever confused volume with power. Arrogance always shouts at justice, she said quietly. But justice only has to whisper once. The camera lingered on her as the lights dimmed. No applause, no music. Just silence, the kind that feels like truth staying behind to finish the work.